their ears for training. We need to check drivers' eyesight. We need to give them on-bike drive training where drivers get on bikes. That, I think, can be the most profound influence of changing a driver's behaviour. When they feel the fear of a 32-ton truck passing you within 2 inches, and that immediately gives them that empathy and that understanding. So we need to increase the understanding and empathy between drivers and other road users.
But even the most highly trained driver is limited by the vehicle that they're using.
Vehicles were not fit for purpose, and so I campaigned for a new lorry design, direct vision entry vehicles where the whole cab is just opened up.
In 2000, all new HGV designs will have to meet. For Japan, and to do the same by 2029. 29 countries is predicted to save 550 lives per year in Europe alone.
As somebody who is a daily cyclist and knows how terrifying it is when large vehicles are around you on the roads, it is good to know that something is being done around the safety of HGVs on the road.
And here at Loughborough University, Dr. Steve Summerskill, well, he's been researching HGV visibility for 13 years.
HGV cab designs basically require the cab to be sat on top of the engine.
So they're high up, so the driver's high up.
Very high.
And is that bad?
One of the worst trucks that we analysed, the driver's eye point was 3 meters above the ground line.
That's high.
So, and then you've got all of the structure of the vehicle blocking your vision of the area in close proximity to the vehicle, where cyclists and pedestrians are. The way that's mitigated for is through the use of 6 mirrors. But if you imagine trying to use 6 mirrors through windows to work out whether it's possible to move off from a junction, by the time you've looked at the last mirror, the situation could easily have changed in the first mirror.
The new direct vision standard means vehicles will be given a star rating from 0 to 5 based on their visibility performance. Any truck under 3 stars will have to have additional safety features like sensors, cameras, and signage fitted to help drivers see and be seen.
What percentage of stars are the HGVs on our roads?
The majority of vehicle designs that we analysed, they were 0-star vehicles.
Wow, okay.
Which means that designs really have to improve.
We're looking at the difference direct vision will make.
So the green volume is what obviously there are big gaps.
What's shocking is how few people, the truck on the left, can be seen by the driver.
So there were 6 people walking in front of the truck. And when we look at what the actual driver can see, at this point, they can see 4 of those people. The reality is, if you walk close to a truck, you are going to be in a blind spot. When you compare that to the performance of the vehicle behind it, all of those pedestrians can be seen. And that really highlights what direct vision is trying to do.
If there was a 5-star vehicle, how many of these people would be seen?
Literally all of them.
But until safer HGVs are on the road, there are ways we can keep ourselves safe. Be predictable. Follow the rules of the road. And if you're on a bike, use hand signals to indicate your intentions. If you're cycling, drivers to overtake you.
Do you want a cup of tea?
Give HGVs a wide.
Why don't you go to Eastleigh and meet up with me?
Stay
Because
visible.
I'm going to
When
Cozy
walking or
Cafe.
cycling
Yeah.
at night, wear bright or reflective clothing. When crossing the road, use pedestrian crossings or traffic signals whenever possible. Be aware of your surroundings. Or listen to music with headphones while walking or cycling near HGVs. Kate's work in her sister's memory has made real change, but she lives with the impact of HGV death every single day.
It's something that will never go away. I mean, they say you learn to live with it. It's always there.
I feel we've seen what can be achieved when experts turn their hand to a situation which really can be life and death. And the future we're looking at with these new standards, well, it'll mean that vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists, are just that little bit safer.
A lot to think about here.
It's happening.
But you ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, I do. So I'm not on a push bike, but on a motorbike, it just proves how vulnerable I am and how many blind spots there can be.
They said from 2026, every new HGV will have to meet those new requirements. I think it's probably changed that a lot of these can't see them quick enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Now, still to come, in around 5 minutes, we are meeting the latest evictees from the BBC game show Survivor. They've eaten nothing but rice, slept on the beach, and pushed themselves to the limit to win a huge cash prize. But it all came crashing down for Shy and Jess this weekend, and we're going to be finding out if they're still mates after the vote off.
Live on the telly. Plus, you can mash and boil them, shove them in the oven. But did you know that you can turn their peel into crisps in 10 minutes? Chef Anna Hall has her top potato hacks to use up every part of the vegetable.
There you go. And all eyes are on the prize now. Strictly after Angela Rippon left at the weekend, the race is on to the final. So at the end of the show, we're going to be celebrating past winners in Strictly Fitness, kicking off with reigning champions Hamza and Vita with their body twists.
You love Hamza.
I love him, and my little girl loves Ranger Hamza.
Oh, it's me, right?
Of course she did. Now, lots of us will be hoping to grab a winning bargain this week in the Black Friday sales. An estimated £3 billion, I cannot believe it's that much, is set to be spent. So which journalist and consumer expert, Grace Borrell, joins us now? Grace, good morning.
Morning.
Now, I know you've got some exclusive research that you can share with us today, because it actually shows that these bargains might not actually be as good as they seem.
Yeah, I mean, Black Friday adverts are just everywhere at the moment, and it's so easy to see them and think this must be the best time to buy stuff. But the truth is, a lot of the time, the products that you see advertised are cheaper at other times of the year. And we research this every year at Which. We monitor the prices to see how much they change. And one year, we actually found that 98% of the products listed on Black Friday were the same price or cheaper, either before or after.
That's ridiculous. 98% weren't a good deal. So, what is a good deal then? What should we avoid, Grace?
Yeah, well, so let's start with tech products, because we know that these are really popular around Black Friday. Half the people that we spoke to in the research who are planning to shop said that they were looking specifically for tech products. So the price stats we've got are pretty shocking for this. If we take TVs, headphones and smartwatches, Sam, do you want to guess how likely it is you'd get a good deal on these?
Well, what I can tell you is that if I was going to buy a telly, I would have waited to Black Friday to do it. That's how confident I am, or I was until I'm feeling like I might have made some bad choices now. But I would have been certain that all those things were definitely cheaper, and that the only thing was maybe they're not quite as, the bargain might be 12% rather than 50% or something. But I would have thought they'd all be cheaper.
Okay, well, I've got news for you. So if we start with headphones, 83% of headphones are cheaper at other times of the year. So just let that sink in. I mean, it means if you are looking at a pair of headphones on Black Friday, there's an 83% likelihood that they were cheaper either before or after. With TVs, it's a similar story. 74% of TVs were cheaper at other times of the year. And if you're actually looking to buy a TV, it's best to do this in spring, because that's when a lot of the new models come out and it pushes down the price of the existing models, and you can actually pick up a good bargain.
Wow.
I don't know what.
Staggering, isn't
So
it?
wait, so why does Black Friday? Why is it even a thing? Is it like, why does it exist?
Well,
I feel
it's a
completely head
Not time for that now.
Okay, sorry.
Grace, I want to know more. Right, that's just staggering.
It's a
What else have you
marketing
got?
thing.
Tell me some more.
Because it's not all bad news. I mean, yeah. Do you want to take a guess about sort of fridge, freezers, tablets, smart TV boxes?
There you go. You need a freezer. You need a freezer. There you go.
Yes, I do. Is now a good time?
It is a good time, yeah. So our research found that this is actually the best time to buy. None of these products were cheap of the year. So if you're in the market for one of these, you
There you go. There is some good news.
What about kitchen essentials?
So then we've got washing machines, coffee machines, air fryers, sort of classic kitchen appliances. Do you want to hazard a guess?
Again, I thought it would all be cheaper. I don't know. Like, if I need a fridge, yes. If I need a telly, no. If these things feel fridgy, I'm going to say yes.
It's really hard, isn't it? I mean, so 30%, give or take, of these items were cheaper at other times of the year. But so there's a fair chance, that you'll get a good deal if you're looking for these. What I would say is that particularly with air fryers and coffee machines, these go on sale a lot. So if you miss Black Friday, there's a good chance you'll pick the one you want up in the January sales. But this still leaves 30% that were cheaper at other times of the year. And that's why it's really important that you do your own research before you buy.
30% still a big chunk, isn't it? So how do we do that? You said it changes over the year for so many products. So how do we see when it is the best time, or what the changes are?
Yeah, so the easiest way to do this is by using a price comparison site. So I use Price Runner, Price Buy. There's also one called Camel that's specifically for Amazon prices. And you go to the website, you type in what it is you're looking for, and it will show you different retailers that are selling it and how much they're selling it for. So you can essentially see the cheapest place to buy it. And then they've got this really handy price history feature where you can see a graph that shows how the price has changed over time. And basically, you want that line on the graph to be at its lowest the day that you are buying. If it isn't at its lowest, you can see it was lower. Today isn't the best time to buy, and you're best off waiting.
It's so clear, isn't it?
Life-changing, right?
So clear.
Whatever we think about Black Friday or Christmas, this is the time of year when people are buying things or gifts or whatever. What are your top 3 tips for bagging a bargain?
Yeah, so I would create a wish list. It means you've got everything in one place and it's prices. Another thing, and I cannot stress this enough, is to do your research. I mean, if you go into Black Friday with the mindset of just impress me, you're going to see loads of stuff. You might buy something with a really impressive looking price tag, but it is actually quite a substandard product. So research the item, research the brand, make sure it's something that you actually want or need. Now, the Which website, we only promote deals that actually do well in our lab tests. So that's a good place to start. And my favourite Black Friday hack is to haggle. And not many people do this, but you can haggle online. You can haggle with a chatbot. And a lot of retailers do price matching. So if you know that the product is cheaper elsewhere, you can ask them to price match it. You can even ask them to go lower. We've had researchers that have knocked 20% off the asking price for haggling online, so you may as well try it.
Right, but I think you just
You would
Literally
think, but
backwards on top with that.
the one bit of this I'm okay at is haggling. I'm not ashamed to say, can I have it for less money?
There's nothing to lose.
What's the best you can do?
Listen, great advice, Grace. The bottom line is, Sam, do not buy your wife an air fryer for Christmas, no matter how big of a bargain. Tracking down the best street bargains is something that you might be doing this time of year, but getting it home through the crowds is the ultimate physical and psychological test. It's nothing, though, compared to what goes on in BBC Survivor.
It's always good, isn't it? That's the game show where players are marooned in a tropical location and compete against each other to win a huge cash prize. But you can't trust anyone.
I feel like it's a great opportunity to get rid of Jess. We have a plan. It's just about whether the original council members stick to that plan.
And you probably feel like
Of course.
my fear is, what if they all flip on me like they did to Rachel, keep Nathan in the dark because we're close, and what if I'm out? I've never fully trusted Shy and Lawrence from the beginning.
If the plan tonight gets executed as we expect, Jess will be blindsided, but further my game, I think it needs to be done.
Oh!
Well, Jess and Shy are joining us now. The elephant in the room, guys. And Jess, are you still talking to Shy after? I mean, let's be honest, it was a bit of backstabbing there, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? We're friends now.
But not in the same room.
So it's all good. Well, Shy, so you were actually booted off after Jess, where your strategy didn't perhaps work out as well as you wanted. What happened?
Jess was a big threat for me, like socially, so I had to get out, and then obviously you have to put trust in some people to survive in the game. So put it in the wrong hands, and I think I basically made myself too big a threat to move forward in the game with. So all's well in war.
But that's the trouble, isn't it? Because you've got the social aspect and you've got to sort of manipulate the group to get through, but that's only one part of it. The physical challenge with the Polach challenge.
Oh, it's just so hard. But when you are so desperate to win, you just find this strength that you never knew you had, and you just give it everything. Especially, I was the only girl, so I was so desperate to stay in.
We saw you at this point. You nearly passed out, didn't you?
Yeah, I kept nearly blacking out, and I kept that's when Joel saw me kind of wobbling, and that's when he had to call it, and my whole body just like went into shock, and I just collapsed.
Yeah.
Well, you were doing all of that in 36-degree heat, so it's no wonder.
Absolutely, with no food in you as well. I think you did fantastically. But there's more to it than just the physical challenge, isn't there, of course? And Shy, we know when you got your letter from home, you actually got quite emotional about it, didn't you? What was that like?
Yeah, it was pretty emotional, but also we're playing a game, so I think it's the one point where, like, in that high pressure environment, you are like taken back to all your friends and family back home. So it was something which is pretty cool to experience with these 4 other macho guys, but everyone like was like a teddy bear by the end of it, crying.
And a group of teddy bears that all still get on, because you've been together since the series, haven't you? We've got a great picture of you guys having a good old celebration there, Shai. You look very, very different to the time on the island.
Yeah, put my weight back on. That's why I lost 8 kilos on the island, and it was great to watch it all together. Jess actually came as well, post that picture being taken, and it was just good fun. Just watching it all together at a pub in Soho.
Oh, good night. You were there, Jess, though, weren't you?
I was there. I was a little bit late. It was just so lovely to see everyone since coming off the island. And we are all friends. It's only a game. It's only 100 grams. You know what you're going to do.
Well, fantastic. Glad you're all friends now.
Best possible attitude. Look, we've really enjoyed watching you both. Thank you for speaking to us this morning, Shai. Thank you for speaking to us, Jess.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you so much.
Good to talk to you. Now, Survivor continues this Saturday at 8:30 on BBC One and on iPlayer.
Now, the recent storms have left the UK looking as far away from Survivor Island as possible. And the bad weather has meant some farmers' potato crops have been left rotting in the ground.
Well, the humble spud is usually cheap as chips. Shortages are pushing up the price, so we look back at when chef Anna Hall explained why it's crucial to use every part of the potato.
Let's face it, potatoes get a bad press when it comes to the current thinking that all carbs are evil. As an Irish woman, this breaks my heart because it's simply not true, and I'm here today to tell you why these carbs are good for you. Gram for gram, spuds contain more potassium than bananas, which is essential for our heart, kidneys, and muscles. They are jam-packed with vitamin B and vitamin C. They're also super cheap, so what's not to like? Broadly speaking, we break them down into 2 categories. Waxy, like the Charlotte, and flowery, like the King Edward. The Charlotte is perfect for boiling in its skin because it doesn't have a lot of starch in it, so it's delicious in salads. The King Edward goes crunchy on the outside and fluffy on the inside, so it makes perfect for roasting potatoes. But there's one variety that's a brilliant all-rounder. It's the Morris Piper, and I've got the perfect recipe to show you what they can do. The recipe I'm going to show you is stuffed boxty pancake, which is basically a normal pancake, cooked potato and raw potato. You'll need last night's cold mashed potato. In a large mixing bowl, break it up, add flour, milk, and egg, some salt, a pinch of nutmeg, some rosemary are the best. When the grated raw potato cooks in the pancake, it'll give it a little bit of crispy bite. Fry in butter for about 2 minutes either side until golden brown. You can fill your boxty pancake with anything that you think is delicious. Ham and cheese, or you think is nice is going to work in this pancake. Today it's cream cheese, a sprinkling of cheddar, and some leftover chicken. I'm just going to flip that over, give it a little bit of a squash down, and we're ready to serve. Smells so good. This isn't just a pancake. This is a super delicious and more nutritious potato pancake. It's going to be yummy. And for a side dish, don't pass on the potato peelings. Normally we throw them in the bin or maybe on the compost, but not today. Today, you're going to make them into crisps. Toss with whatever spices you have. I'm using paprika and ginger, a pinch of salt, and a squeeze of oil. Mix well and lay on a baking tray lined with greaseproof paper. I'm going to pop these in the oven at about 180 degrees for 20 minutes or until they're lovely, crispy and golden. While we're waiting for our crisps to crisp, here's some potato storage tips. Always store your spuds out of direct sunlight. Natural sunlight actually creates a kind of toxin in potatoes that is not good for you. If you've got any mud on your potatoes, don't wash it off until you're ready to use them. Keeping your potatoes dry is what's going to keep them fresh. And if after a few weeks Your potatoes start to sprout a little bit. Don't worry, just lift them off with a knife and they're as good as new. Something smells good. In 20 minutes, I turned potato skins into crisps. So there you have it. Some top tips for tasty patties and proof that these are the carbs you need in your life.
Couldn't agree more. Now though, it is time for Strictly Fitness and Maria, so cue the music. Hello.
Hello, right. So, Maria, as we get closer to this year's Strictly Fitness, we're going to look at winners from previous series so far for inspiration. So, whose moves are you teaching us today?
Well, we are taking a move from my favorite. It's Hamza and Jovita's couples twist, and that is the move that we will be doing right there. Not all of that, though. Don't worry. But before we start, we have 2 exercise moves, and the first one, we're going to put our hands right behind our ears, and then we're going to twist the body and then bring the knees up, and then we're going to alternate to the other side. Now, if you are seated, you can just join me with the torso, or if you can, just bring your knees up just slightly off the floor in a bent position. And for our second move of the day, we're going to reach for the stars, and we're going to lift the opposite leg and to the other side. Again, if you are seated, you can just join me with the upper body. If you can, we're going to bring the leg up in a straight position, just a little bit off the floor. And for our Strictly move, arms just like this, and we're going to change from one side to the other as we do a little bit of a twist.
Well, that all sounds good. I think everyone's ready for this, so take it away, Alan.
Kicking off the week with an energizing workout, it's Maria Tiziani.
Ready? And we're going to twist 1, 2, good, 3, last one, and we're going to reach up, good, up, last one, and into our Strictly move. We're going to give a little twist to one side,
Yeah, no, great.
and to the other side, good, and back to our twist, 1, 2, good, 3, and 4, to the sides, 1, 2, good, 3, and 4, and
Stretch.
1, little twist to one side, and a little twist to the other side. Good, arms up, and twist.
Excellent. Maria, you carry on there. That's all we've got time for today. We're both going to be back tomorrow at 9:15. Though, stay with us on BBC for a brand new series of Defenders, which is coming up next.
This is Planet Earth 3. Watch new episodes every Sunday on BBC iPlayer.
My favourite kind of newscast moment is when we sort of have a Eureka moment. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what this is about. My favourite thing is just having like the space to say stuff that I might not be able to say anywhere else.
My favourite bit is when you get a really cheeky but excellent question from one of you. Newscast. Listen every day on BBC Sounds.
Good evening.
For 70 years, Panorama has pursued the truth.
What would you say to families of loved ones who've been mistreated?
Questioning, uncovering.
People should serve a prison sentence for what they're doing.
I work for Panorama, and I'd like to ask you some questions.
We're only going to get closure if we can make it better, if we can make a change.
70 years and we're not done yet. Panorama. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
This your first time in prison? Love you lot. If you loved us, you wouldn't be in jail. What am I going to do? Will you seek revenge, Abby?
You really expect me to answer that?
Time. Press red for all episodes on BBC iPlayer.
If you're just joining us, morning, it's BBC One Daytime from Monday, and I'm your live claimed and shamed cheats calls out in 45 minutes for this back for new series, Defenders Busting Bad Guys.
Across the UK, criminals are blighting our neighbourhoods, putting our children at risk.
impacted our lives so much.
creating havoc on our roads.
You could just see the bricks toppling towards you and knowing there was nothing we could do.
And endangering entire communities.
All I can think is that house is going to fall down on top of me and I'm going to die.
But the lawbreakers aren't having it all their own way. Thanks to skilled teams of eagle-eyed enforcement officers working alongside the police to keep us safe. Our defenders. Today, our defenders crack down on the lorry drivers carrying dangerous, insecure loads, putting us all at risk.
We didn't realise how bad it could have been until we got out of the car. We then saw the mess the car was in, and we thought, well, okay, yeah, that could have been an awful lot worse.
They prosecute the owner of a trampoline park who failed to report a series of injuries.
She was on the ward and they were prepping her for theatre. Because she was just so little, being 5 and going through all of this, it's just heartbreaking.
And they put a stop to one of the cruelest doorstep cons they've ever seen.
When you've been in the job as long as I have, there are very few cases that genuinely shock you. But this one, when I read this case file, this genuinely made me angry.
The load on the back of this lorry hasn't been properly secured. As the driver negotiates the narrow country roads and rounds a bend, it comes loose. The occupants in the car behind have had a lucky escape. Every year there are thousands of incidents like this. Bus driver Michael Birch was even more lucky to survive when a 15-ton traction engine fell off the back of a lorry and smashed into his bus.
You see the state of it and you think, I was in there, that was my seat. That bit that's totally obliterated is where I was sitting.
Michael had been a bus driver in Colchester, Essex for 15 years.
I didn't think I'd actually do it for that long, and yeah, you just didn't want to leave. I really loved it. It was so easy, and you just met so many people. You get them to their destination as quickly and safely as possible. They get off and they're all happy.
But Michael's career came to an abrupt end when he was involved in a serious collision that almost killed him and several passengers. He'd been driving the number 67 between Mersey Island and Colchester General Hospital, a route he'd driven hundreds of times.
I was coming from Mersey, a place called Blue Row, which is 5 or 10 minutes into the route. As I came down the main road, the last thing I remember is coming past Blue Row and then going down onto where the open fields were.
What happened next came completely out of the blue.
The only memory I have is just a bang.
As Michael rounded a corner, a low loader carrying a traction engine was coming towards him. As the driver braked, the strap securing the huge engine snapped. The engine broke free, fell off the lorry, and crashed straight into Michael's bus.
The next thing I remember was seeing a fireman in where the windscreen used to be, saying, "Don't worry, mate, we're going to get you out of it." And I was like, "No, you won't. No, this is it." I said, "Just don't worry about me. Get the passengers off because I ain't going to make it."
Michael had suffered deep lacerations to his abdomen, 2 punctured lungs, multiple broken bones, and part of his right hand was missing. He was lucky to be alive.
When paramedics spoke to me afterwards, they said, "Oh, you've both lungs are gone." So you were just breathing. You was just adrenaline was keeping you alive.
An air ambulance transferred Michael to the Royal London Hospital. His injuries were so severe, he was put into an induced coma.
My wife said to me that they still weren't sure if I was going to make it. There was a possibility maybe that she'd have to give them authority to turn off the machine if it turned out that way, which is got to be a really heart-wrenching thing.
Both Michael's shoulders were shattered, and surgeons had to completely rebuild his right hand.
Repairing all the shoulders, they said they'd done as much as they could do with what they had left. And that's when you think of the surgeon saying that, you think actually it might have been quite bad then.
Michael regained consciousness, and against all the odds, after 4 weeks in hospital, he was able to return home.
Very, very lucky to be alive. You don't know when your time's up, but you know, when you look back and you think what injuries were present and how I've actually managed to survive all that, yeah, it wasn't my time.
23 bus passengers were injured, 6 seriously.
What if that had come off on the motorway, the A12, the A1, you know, on any road like that, where that had come off into the live carriageway, you're talking fatalities, because they're hitting that at 70 miles an hour. Every time I see my hand, there's a reminder straight there. Every time I can't reach something, because I don't want to go that high. You know, you constantly got that reminder that someone else did that to you, and if they'd done their job properly, this would never have happened.
Marion Kitson is Director of Enforcement at the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency.
I want every load that is on our roads to be secure from the moment it leaves the depot to the moment it gets to its destination. And so therefore my ambition is to make sure that we get everybody working to the right standards. However, if something does go wrong, or if people aren't following the rules, then my team are there to spot those problems and to take them off the road wherever possible.
The driver of the lorry pleaded guilty to 6 counts of causing serious injury by dangerous driving and was jailed for 1.5 years. He also received a 1-year, 9-month driving ban.
The roads are unpredictable. You know, and if you don't strap that down properly, or you don't chain it down, or whatever you've got to do to keep that load secure, you could be the one saying, I killed someone today.
Later.
It's a fair old heavy load on this. 3 straps holding it isn't sufficient.
Our defenders prevent a low loader carrying 2 huge blocks of concrete from continuing its journey.
In its present state, I don't think the load is safe to continue.
Indoor trampoline parks are everywhere these days. They're a great way for kids to get their adrenaline kicks. Most are well run, but the owner of Superjump in Cardiff showed a blatant disregard for health and safety laws, and a succession of children ended up with broken limbs.
You just assume that you take your children to these places and that they're all safe and regulated. Do your research. You might not think of doing it, just going out for the day, but it can have such horrific consequences.
Amy Kirkpatrick and her daughter Lily live in the village of Redbrook, Monmouth.
We do lots of things together, lots of girly shopping days and movie nights and making TikToks together.
At the age of 11, Lily still suffers with an injury sustained when she was just 5 years old.
It was January 2018. Lily was with her dad that weekend and they went to trampoline park to have a bit of family fun with the cousins and aunties as well.
They visited Cardiff's...
The craze of trampoline parks was starting, really. You know, trampoline parks, they're great places to have lots of family fun. And so when Lily's dad said that he had absolutely no concerns, I had no worries at all. I thought they're going to have a fantastic time.
But it didn't turn out that way.
The trampoline park we've been to previously was brilliant. I cannot fault it at all. However, Superjump was not like that. I was actually in London at my friend's 30th birthday time, and I had a phone call from Lily's dad saying that there'd been an accident.
Lily had a suspected broken leg and an ambulance had been called.
When the ambulance came, she had gas and air, morphine, before they could move her.
Lily was taken to the University Hospital of Wales.
I went straight to the hospital and straight onto the ward where Lily was. She'd been admitted, she was on the ward, and they were prepping her for theatre. The orthopaedic surgeon came in to see us, and she explained that Lily had broken both bones in her leg, just below her knee, and she would need either that evening or the following morning.
Lily had broken the tibia and fibula in her right leg. An adult had apparently fallen onto her whilst she was on the trampoline.
Because she was just so little, being 5 and going through all of this, it's just heartbreaking. They were aware that it had gone through her growth plate, which at that time they said they don't know what it means for her future and how her leg is going to grow. I was scared for then what was kind of going to happen next with her. Being a nurse, it had its benefits. I knew a lot of the staff there, and I felt like I could keep on top of Lily's care as well. I suppose I worried a bit more because I knew about different complications that could happen.
Lily underwent surgery the next morning to reposition the bones so that they could start healing. But the future was still uncertain.
I was told that the long-term effects could be that she will need frequent surgery until she stops growing. I know if the growth plate is damaged, it's affecting bone growth, and she was only 5. She still had a lot of growing to do.
The injury caused Lily's leg to grow at an angle, and she needed metal plates to straighten it out.
Since the accident, Lily's had 2 surgeries. It has impacted Lily's life tremendously. She's not been able to always take part in PE, sports days. She's struggled with riding a bike, running, skipping. Her mobility has been significantly impacted.
What happened to Lily wasn't an isolated case. In separate incidents, 4 other children suffered broken legs. Another fractured her spine, and a 6th child sustained facial injuries. Alison Farrer is lead officer for consumer education at the Chartered Trading Standards Institute.
These could be life-changing injuries that happen to these children. What you want to do as a parent is make sure that it never happens to anybody again. You want to look after your children, make sure they're having a great day, but to be able to trust that the place is safe that you're taking them to.
Since Lily's accident, we've heard of so many more people that have had accidents there from around the 2017 to 2019 mark, and it's just so sad to find out that so many people have suffered.
Later, our defenders investigate serious failings at Superjump and take the owner to court.
You're guilty at all about the broken bones and some life-changing injuries? Yes, of course I do. I'm not answering any more questions, I'm sorry.
Bus driver Michael Birch suffered life-threatening injuries when a 15-ton traction engine fell off the back of a lorry and smashed into his bus.
What if that had come off on the motorway, the A12, the A1, any road like that, where that had come off into the live carriageway, you're talking fatalities, because they're hitting that at 70 miles an hour.
Today, enforcement officers are carrying out roadside checks on lorries carrying heavy loads. Mark Horton is an enforcement policy manager with the DVSA, is our defender.
We see this all the time. You might not always make it on the front page of the newspapers, but it does happen. And that's why we go out there doing the work that we do day in, day out.
The DVSA has got spotter vehicles patrolling the M5, pulling over vehicles to check their loads are properly secured.
I'm aiming to get in front of this truck with sufficient time for him to be able to follow my directions and slow down before the next junction.
Today, our enforcement staff are running a road check at this check site. We're looking to target non-compliant vehicles that we see on the road network. We'll bring them into the check site off the motorway and we'll have a look at the vehicle, make sure that's roadworthy.
This low loader is carrying 2 huge 13-ton concrete blocks. If a load like this isn't firmly held in place, then the consequences could be catastrophic.
This vehicle's been brought in due to the load on the back of it.
The concrete blocks look secure, but the straps may not be sufficient to hold them firmly in place through the entire journey.
It's a fair old heavy load on this. 3 straps holding it isn't sufficient. Could be catastrophic if it departs from the trailer itself. It's more in an accident as well, under heavy braking, where it could be moving, it could move forwards.
A load this heavy should have chains, not straps, holding it in place. And there should be a much smaller gap between the load and the headboard, protecting the driver's cab.
There's gaps between the load and the headboard at the front. The headboard's designed to try and restrain the items from travelling forwards, and so we want to keep that gap to a minimum and have some form of restriction there. You notice a couple of the straps appear to be damaged along the edges. This is affecting the integrity of the strap itself. Whilst it's under tension, there's quite a lot of force on there, and it can split and cause further separation.
If those straps aren't applied correctly, if the way that the load is secured isn't robust, then the movement during a journey can make all the difference. So it is really, really important that everybody in the industry attends to making sure that loads are secure and that they're checking them as they're travelling too.
Checking for loose wheel nuts or any damage to the hub.
We find that a diverse range of problems when we pull vehicles into our road checks. We can find all sorts of issues with the roadworthiness. That might be the tyres, or it might be the steering.
This low loader is in a roadworthy condition, but some of the wooden boards are starting to rot and the load isn't sufficiently secure.
If we find a problem with it, we'll obviously deal with that by taking appropriate enforcement action. And we'll also try and educate the driver where that's appropriate.
In this case, the driver's issued with a fixed penalty and is prohibited from continuing his journey because the load's a danger to other road users.
In its present state, I don't think the load is safe to continue.
It's important that we've got standards, whether that's driving a vehicle, loading a vehicle, or running a transport industry. They've got to adhere to those standards and be compliant to make sure our roads are safe for everybody to use.
The biggest thing for me is to work with industry to make sure that they understand what their obligations are in terms of load security, and to make sure that they follow the risk assessments and take the due diligence to check and check again that those loads are secure before they start on their journey.
Even relatively small items like these need to be properly secured. If they fall off, they could cause a tragic accident. The driver of this car is in a residential area traveling at just 20 miles per hour when this happens. If something like that was to happen here on the M5, the consequences could be extremely serious, even fatal.
I think we all drive up and down the motorway and we see things lying around. Generally, they've fallen off the back of something. They weren't there before, so we all are exposed to these insecure loads in one way or another. If anything falls off a vehicle, it's got to be picked up. So that means the road network in that area is going to have to be shut down. Somebody's have to go out there and pick it up. People are going to be delayed. They're going to miss appointments, meetings.
Eventually, the load journey. The load's now been properly secured using chains, and it's no longer a danger to other road users.
It's really important that drivers and operators or anybody that's involved in securing loads takes their responsibility seriously in doing that.
Later, The terrifying moment a pallet of paving bricks falls from a lorry and crushes the front of an oncoming car.
Makes you sort of look at your life really and think, well, you know, it could have all ended just at that moment.
Many of us would like to make our homes more energy efficient by fitting new doors and windows. And if you could get a £3,000 window scrappage subsidy to help pay for the work, even better. That's what this doorstep con man was promising.
His MO was basically to deceive people into paying big deposits for windows and ultimately either not deliver anything, or if he did deliver something, it was very poor quality.
The truth was, the window scrappage deal didn't exist. It was all part of a huge £100,000 dodgy window scam. For 37 years.
When you've been in the job as long as I have, there are very few cases that genuinely shock you down to it.
Colin is our defender.
But this one, when I read this case file, this genuinely made me angry.
The dodgy window scam investigation by East Riding of Yorkshire Trading Standards.
We first became aware of this particular case in November 2020 when we started to get a trickle of complaints. All the complaints were of a very, very similar nature. People had all been cold called at their home. They'd been given a hard sell, windows, doors, conservatories.
A company called Limited was pressurising people into spending thousands on doors and windows. Cameron Akram was the company's sole director.
We kept getting the same picture of people receiving a cold call at home. Suddenly there was somebody on their doorstep saying, you know, you should have some new windows fitted, you need some new doors.
Akram's sales team was deliberately targeting elderly and vulnerable people in towns like Beverley in East Yorkshire.
Akram had certainly done his research and he was picking on areas where he knew there was a high concentration of elderly and vulnerable people. And that was how he operated. That was his method of operation. And it was quite clear he was very systematic about that.
Victims were led to believe they'd get money off, thanks to a window scrappage deal.
Akram in his leaflets was making out that everybody was entitled to a £3,000 government discount because they were upgrading the quality of insulation with their windows. That was completely fictitious and no such discount ever existed.
Akram was using a combination of pressure selling and misleading information to trick customers into handing over large deposits. Sylvia Rook is the lead officer for fair trading at the Chartered Trading Standards Institute.
I think people feel it's their fault when they've been scammed. They feel that they could have done something to change it. But the people who con elderly people, the people who con the vulnerable, are criminals. They are criminals. They are targeting people. They know what they're doing. So I would say very strongly, please don't feel ashamed. Tell someone. Tell Trading Standards.
His tactics were not to take no as an answer and to keep going and going and going until somebody signed up and paid a deposit. Often to the point where they would leave and then return half an hour later.
If they didn't pay the deposit promptly, Akram would chase them for the money. In one case, he demanded money from a woman who was in hospital visiting her dying husband.
Akram rang the lady who explained where she was and said, you know, give me a break, my husband is dying on a COVID ward, I need to be with him. He wouldn't accept that and insisted that she made payment at that point.
Akram's aggressive sales tactics are banned under consumer legislation.
That kind of behaviour is disgusting and inhuman, and it's just not acceptable. When somebody says no, you have to take that as their answer and leave. If you don't leave, you will commit an offence under legislation. And that's what they were doing. When the customers tried to cancel their order, they were threatened with abusive language, aggression over the phone. Sometimes somebody would even be sent round to speak to them face to face. And they were basically intimidated into going ahead with the job.
Some orders were never completed. Others were finished to a shockingly poor standard.
They've got windows that didn't open or shut properly. They've got doors that didn't open or shut properly. And there was cases where the customers were fearful of opening the door for fear that they couldn't shut it again. The quality was so poor that it just took a matter of days for that to happen. The customers ultimately had to get good, honest, legitimate traders to come and rectify the problems. So ultimately, they were paying for the job twice.
Akram's window scam left victims out of pocket by £100,000.
His actions were reprehensible. Well, it makes you feel extremely angry, and it makes you feel extremely motivated that you need to do something about it.
Akram admitted 13 offences, including unfair and aggressive practices towards customers and misleading commercial practices.
The judge told Akram that he ran a cowboy business that caused a huge amount of upset and distress to his customers. I do agree with the judge's comments. He got it absolutely spot on.
Akram got a suspended jail sentence of 1 year, 6 months. He was ordered to pay over £37,000 in compensation to his victims.
Cold callers are often very charming, they're very convincing, they're very persuasive. But ultimately, you have to remember that you never know who you're really dealing with, and that's where the problem lies. My advice to the general public would be just do not do business on the doorstep.
Earlier, we saw how a trip to Superjump trampoline park landed Lily in hospital with serious injuries.
Because she was just so little, being 5 and going through all of this, it's just heartbreaking. Since this happened with Lily, it has completely changed my view. I think in the past, I would just take for granted that places were safe and had all of the correct health and safety in place. Now I know that that isn't always the case. So if we do go somewhere, I do my research before. And she hasn't been on a trampoline since that day.
Following a number of complaints, health and safety inspectors at Cardiff City Council launched an investigation. They looked into 6 incidents between August 2017 and October 2019. Lily's incident wasn't among those reported, but there were 4 others that involved children suffering broken legs. In another case, a child fractured her spine, and a 6th child sustained facial injuries.
These places are obviously going to have minor accidents, bumps and grazes, and people falling at an awkward angle. Bouncing on a trampoline, that's exactly what happens. So that serious injuries can be avoided. Really important that these places keep track of any kind of accidents so that they can get them reported, they can get them dealt with, and they can avoid them happening again.
The 4 broken legs should have been reported to the council, triggering a health and safety review. But instead, they were covered up.
You just assume that you take your children to these places and that they're all safe and regulated. She wouldn't have gone.
Investigators found there was no suitable risk assessment or staff training procedure in place, and that guidance from the regulator had been largely ignored.
I hope that other venues will kind of see what's gone on with Superjump and take note and make sure that they are up to date with everything, with that their safety measures are all how they should be, and that the regulations are all adhered to.
The laws from cutting corners and safety. Obviously, in this instance, those corners were cut and the consequences were pretty serious. many businesses need to pay attention to this case and make sure that their procedures are fully up to speed, because this could have easily happened to them too.
Superjump owner Philip Booth admitted 6 health and safety offences. In June 2023, at Cardiff Crown Court, the judge gave him a suspended jail sentence and ordered his company to pay £20,000 in fines and costs.
Got anything to say for the victims, Mr. Booth? Do you feel lucky not to go in prison today? No crime. Do you feel guilty at all about the broken bones and some life-changing injuries?
Yes, of course I do, but I'm not answering any more questions. I'm sorry.
It's good that action has been taken. He's clearly just put money ahead of safety and at the expense of people's injuries.
Oh, that's me after surgery.
That was you, yeah, that was the next morning. Really has been amazing. She is this little girl I know, and she has taken it all on with so much courage, and she's fantastic. We're going through a very good stage at the moment. However, we have been told that she will need more surgery.
Lily's ongoing treatment is set to continue for several years.
They've said it's likely to carry on until she stops growing, potentially around 17. She then will possibly have to make a decision of whether she wants. We're already at, I think, a 3 centimetre discrepancy. But obviously, we still have a lot more growing because she still has 6 years to go until she's 17.
Amy wants to raise awareness among parents about the importance of ensuring benefits.
Do your research. You might not think of doing it, just going out for the day, but it can have such horrific consequences.
Earlier, our defenders were on the front line, pulling over lorries they suspected of having unsafe loads.
3 straps holding it isn't sufficient. A couple of the straps appear
huge concrete blocks on this low load
to continue.
Neil and Ali Collins consider themselves lucky to be alive after this happened.
Just 2 more straps, just 10 more minutes effort when that lorry left the yard, and this would have happened.
Neil and Ali were planning a day trip to Holcombe Beach in Norfolk.
It was 26th of April 2021, and I remember the date because that was my wife's 50th birthday.
We both booked a day off work to spend it together. Neil and I are both good walkers. What we enjoy doing as part of our pastime and exploring. It's just a beautiful walk. The beach is lovely.
It was a nice dry day, bright sunshine, a lovely April day in Norfolk. It was, it doesn't get much better.
They set off around 9:30 a.m. Neil had driven the same route many times before and was familiar with the roads.
There's certainly no motorways, so there's a lot of narrow-ish country lanes, which can get very busy.
Neil and Ali had just bought a brand new electric car, a Tesla with built-in dash cam, recording their journey from 4 different angles. What happened next was captured on all of them.
Coming up to a sharp right turn, right bend in the road, we saw a lorry coming the other way. You could sort of see by the way it was tilting over, it had taken the corner faster than it meant to.
To me, it seemed like it was flying round. It probably wasn't, but it looked like it was flying round.
As it rounded the bend, pallets of bricks and paving slabs broke loose and slid off the back of the lorry and smashed straight into Neil and Ali's car.
You could just see the bricks toppling towards you and knowing there was nothing we could do. I just remember Neil's last words were, "Oh my God, the bricks are coming off."
It was in a big bang, the airbags went off, glass everywhere, blocks of pavers in the car.
The pallets had crashed into the front of the car, then straight through the windscreen. The car was full of rubble and shattered glass. Neil and Ali were lucky to be alive.
Your first thought is your partner, you know, your husband, whatever. Are you both okay? I knew that I was alive, but I didn't know whether Neil was.
The driver's side of the car had taken the full force of the impact.
Neil and I both sort of went, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." "Are you okay?" And he went, "Yeah, I think so." With the smoke and all the bricks around him, I actually thought he might have been trapped in the car.
Incredibly, Neil and Ali had escaped with only minor cuts and bruises.
I managed to get out, and then saw Neil then manage to climb over because he couldn't get out his side and come out my side as well. So it was he was okay and could get out.
We didn't realise how bad it could have been until we got out of the car. We then saw the mess the car was in, and we thought, well, okay, yeah, that could have been an awful lot. Amazing that we were walking away really.
The lorry had stopped, and the driver had rushed over to help.
He'd obviously had a massive shock there. The thing that stuck with me was the look on his face. He thought he'd killed us.
The consequences of getting it wrong with load security, I'm afraid, is the worst consequence that any of us can think about. Unfortunately, to go to coroner's court to provide evidence where somebody has lost their life due to an insecure load. So that's one of the reasons why we take this so terribly seriously, and my team are relentless in their pursuit of making sure that loads are secure in transit.
Back on the M5, our defenders are continuing their roadside checks.
It's not just restricted to the motorways, it's also a danger in rural and urban areas. There's probably a very good argument to say that you're more likely to come across an insecure load in an urban area where you've got potholes in the road and traffic calming, things bounce off the back of vehicles.
Okay. DVSA inspectors are also...
Your vehicle, as it is, this combination, that's over 3.5 ton on the road surface. As it is, that's how it's being driven, so you're overweight on that, so that's going to have to come off. And he's coming at 9.7% overweight on the towing vehicle, which equates to 3,840 kilos.
In this case, one of the cars will have to be taken off if the journey is to continue. But that's not the only problem.
Tread 1.3. Okay, there is going to incur a fixed penalty.
The tread on one of the rear tyres is below the legal limit and will have to be replaced.
They're professional drivers in the most part, and it's their job to make sure that their vehicle and their load doesn't present a danger to other road users. If they choose not to do that, then ultimately they need to suffer the consequences, and that's what we'll do. We'll deal with them and use our enforcement powers to do that. In the more serious cases, we'll consider court action for them using a dangerous vehicle. We might visit the operator or their employer, and they could be prosecuted as well.
He's overweight. He's got to lose one of the cars.
Mark and his team are passionate and ultimately saving lives.
Operators who don't secure the load, because I get to see those consequences through my work and through the colleagues that I work with on a regular basis.
As far as Neil and Ali are concerned, the work of our defenders is vitally important.
You have to take a level of responsibility when you're driving an HGV. Everyone can make mistakes, of course they can, but you know they can then have serious consequences, and you've got a duty of care when you're driving something like that around to make sure the roads are secured in the first place, make sure you're driving sensibly, and if you're not, then dreadful, awful things can happen.
Still makes me feel sick.
Yeah,
Stomach still goes, I have to say. We both still think about it. I certainly still get dreams about it, nightmares about it. If I see a lorry coming towards me around a bend, it's literally heart in the mouth.
Looking back, Ali feels she was lucky not to have lost her husband in that moment.
He took definitely his side of the car, took the brunt of the impact. You can't believe that you're that lucky that, you know, he's still with me. It could have been a very different story.
Yeah, it makes you sort of look at your life really and think, well, it could have all ended just at that moment.
I treasure very much so all the times we have together. That brings it home to you, something like that. Just take that extra bit of time and just double check the load, double check it's secure, and however much pressure, and I know it's very easy to say, of having to be somewhere on time to make a load, it's not worth somebody's life.
Our defenders are working tirelessly on our behalf, cracking down on the cruelest of cons, and on the front line, checking and rechecking to ensure we all get home safely wherever we are.
My idea of a good job done is where I have changed the behaviour, and my teams have changed the behaviour of somebody who had perhaps cut some corners, and that they've then gone on to be the exemplar of road safety standards, and they've changed their behaviour and they are following the rules for their own safety and for the safety of others. That's a good job done.
Defenders getting a good job done up on the roof where the new series continues tomorrow at 10. Getting to the truth and exposing insurance fraudsters claimed and shamed on BBC One next.
Right, we need a story.
I've got a story. We're walking along, we find a bottle of drugs.
I didn't mean for it to happen. Now these people are going to kill us. If you want to live, this is our only choice.
You're not Rambo, you two.
Boat Story. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
He wants to be the greatest man in Rome.
He's so smart. He just knows how to use his opportunities.
To disgrace in every single way. He's immoral, he's irreligious, and he's a pirate.
Julius Caesar is the most dangerous kind of demagogue.
Relive the greatest rise and fall in all of history. Julius Caesar, The Making of a Dictator, starts next Monday at 9 on BBC Two and iPlayer.
Alison Sandworth, Greater Manchester, with a story to tell on Hammer in half an hour on BBC One. Right now, though, shameless insurance claims for murder.
Insurance fraud in the UK costs more than £1.2 billion a year. That's more than £3 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing, and every year it's adding more than £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing a fraudulent claim every 5 minutes. Armed with the latest fraud-busting technology, including covert surveillance systems, sophisticated data analysis techniques, and specially trained fraud investigators. They're catching these chances red-handed. Instead of getting away with it, more and more of these fraudsters are being caught out and claimed and shamed. Today on Claimed and Shamed, a woman claiming £1.7 million after life-changing injuries left her unable to carry out the most basic tasks is caught on furniture.
The claimant was seen going to a furniture store and packing furniture into the boot of a car.
The footballer, after a payout for falling into a pothole, is shown the red card when it's revealed he'd suffered an identical injury on the pitch.
The report of him playing football and being stretchered off was critical in this case. That persuaded us that this was entirely a bogus claim.
And things that go bump in the night. It's lights off for a prisoner who said he'd fallen out of a bunk bed when his story doesn't add up.
The prisoner didn't actually report this to healthcare staff until 4 days after the accident took place and didn't seek any medical attention until that point either.
From career criminals to one-time chances, unscrupulous individuals will go to great lengths to come up with elaborate fibs and tell tall tales in order to put in bogus claims. But today on Claimed and Shamed, we'll see how quick-witted lawyers and insurance investigators have the tools to expose the scammers' lies so they can get to the truth of the matter. Our first case today started with a collision that was so serious that the emergency services had to be called. For one of those were severe. The woman had been left with a traumatic brain injury and other associated injuries. She put a claim into RSA, the insurer of the driver of the car which caused the crash, for the effect the injuries had had on her everyday life.
The injuries were described as significant, from fatigue, vertigo, dizziness, right through to post-traumatic stress disorder, not being able to sleep, not being able to watch TV, not being able to drive, not being able to carry out her hobbies, including playing tennis, walking.
The woman was also asking for compensation for loss of earnings, saying she could no longer carry out her role as a teaching assistant. And that wasn't all.
This claimant also suggested that there were other
See ya.
impacts to the